Assalamu alaikum students. We are going to do female reproductive system. Yesterday we did up till endometrial hyperplasia. I'm just going to repeat endometrial hyperplasia and then we'll do endometrial carcinoma and then leiomyomas and leiomyosarcomas. Okay. So I hope everything was clear yesterday. If there are any questions, you can write me in this chat box or you can tell me in the WhatsApp group so I can answer your queries. So as I told you, endometrial hyperplasia is associated with prolonged estrogenic stimulation of the endometrium, which can be due to anovulation, increased estrogen production, or can be due to production of excessive endogenous hormones, or if we give more of exogenous hormones. Exogenous hormones is that we are giving hormonal therapy for certain conditions to the females. Associated conditions which are also associated with prolonged estrogen stimulation are obesity. In obesity, there is production of estrogen in the fat depots as well. And then in menopause, polycystic ovarian syndrome, functional granulosa cell tumor of the ovary, which also produce more of estrogen, excessive ovarian cortical function, and estrogen replacement therapy, which is known as ERT, which are given mostly to perimenopausal women or premenopausal women. That is also can lead to endometrial hyperplasia. ERT is not given anymore because it also predisposes to carcinoma of the breast. So this is endometrial hyperplasia. There are two types, endometrial hyperplasia without atypia and with atypia. This is crowding of endometrial glands, and this is typical hyperplasia. This is atypical hyperplasia. I'm going to explain it after the pictures after I do the Gaussian microscopy. Pathogenesis. Inactivation of PTN phosphatase intensin homolog, which is a tumor suppressor gene, is a common genetic alteration which is seen both in endometrial hyperplasia and in endometrial carcinoma. PTN gene provides instructions for making an enzyme. The enzyme acts as a tumor suppressor, which means that it helps to regulate the cell division by keeping cells from growing in an uncontrolled manner. You know that normally the endometrium is shed off and normal endometrium is replaced every cyclical month. So in cases of where the PTN gene is going to be defective or there is going to be alteration in PTN gene, the enzyme production is also going to be defective and there is uncontrolled proliferation of the cells giving rise to endometrial hyperplasia. In PTN function, there is loss of PI3K-AKT pathway which becomes overactive, and this PI3K-AKT pathway signaling enhances the ability of estrogen receptors to turn on the expression of target genes. So because of the inhibition of this PI3K-AKT signaling, it enhances the ability of estrogen receptor to turn over on the expression of target genes. The loss of PTN function may stimulate estrogen-dependent gene expression, leading to overgrowth of cell types that depend upon the estrogen hormone or trophic signals such as endometrial and mammary epithelial cells. So the cells which are most commonly going to be effective are endometrium and mammary epithelial cell because of defects in the PTEN gene. Mutation of PTEN gene is found in more than 20% of hyperplasia, and in cases of endometrial carcinoma, 30 to 80% of endometrial carcinoma, mutations of PTEN gene is seen. Patients with Cordon syndrome, which occurs because of germline mutation of PTN, have a high incidence of endometrial carcinoma. Cordon syndrome, I've told you in the earlier lectures as well, is a syndrome in which there multiple hematomas are seen and there is increased incidence of carcinoma of the breast, thyroid, and endometrium. Okay, so these type of carcinomas are because of the Cordon syndrome, and it is also now called PTEN syndrome as well. The most current WHO classification for the endometrial hyperplasia is non-atypical hyperplasia and atypical hyperplasia. Non-atypical hyperplasia is a wide range of appearances, but the most important feature is increase in the gland to stroma ratio. Glands show variation in size and shape, and they are dilated with stroma in between. These lesions rarely progress to carcinoma. Atypical hyperplasia. Endometrial atypical hyperplasia can also be called endometrial intraepithelial neoplasia. It is composed of complex pattern of proliferating glands which display nuclear atypia. Atypia, you know, is variation in size and shape of the cells, the gland of the nuclei. The glands are back to back and they have complex outline branching structures. There is no intervening stroma in between. The nuclei have opened up chromatin with prominent nucleoli, and disturbed NC ratio is seen as well. These features have considerable overlap with the well-differentiated endometrial carcinoma. And when we do hysterectomy specimen, for these patients, 23 to 48% of females endometrial carcinoma can be seen in other sites with endometrial hyperplasia as well. So if you see this diagram, photomicrograph, you can see crowding of the glands, number of glands is increased as compared to stroma. This is non-atypical hyperplasia. And these both are atypical hyperplasia in which you can see very little intervening stroma. Here you can see no intervening stroma and the gland architecture is complex with multi-layering of glandular epithelium. These are the nuclei which show prominent nucleoli as well and vesicular nuclei with variation in size and shape. So this is atypical hyperplasia. Atypical hyperplasia, the other term is known as, can be called as carcinoma, intraepithelial carcinoma or carcinoma in situ. You know, are familiar with these terms, it means that the carcinoma is there, but it is confined within the basement membrane with no stromal invasion. This is a better picture of atypical endometrial hyperplasia. You can see the glands have back-to-back arrangement. There is no intervening stroma in between. There is multi-layering of lining epithelium. The lining epithelial cells show variation in size and shape. And there is also going to be pleomorphic nuclei. Okay. So this is atypical endometrial hyperplasia. We have two types of endometrial hyperplasia: non-atypical hyperplasia and atypical endometrial hyperplasia, which is also called intraepithelial neoplasia as well. So, okay, now we are going to start with the tumors of the uterus. Tumors of the uterus. First, we'll do malignant tumors of the endometrium. Then I'm going to do the stromal tumors, and then the smooth muscle tumor of the uterus, which is known as leiomyoma, which is benign is leiomyoma, malignant is leiomyosarcoma. So first we'll do the endometrial tumors. In the endometrial tumors, carcinoma of the endometrium is the most invasive carcinoma in the female genital tract and 7% of all invasive carcinoma. When we are going to do carcinoma of the cervix, you will see that carcinoma of the cervix was more common in females earlier, but now it is less common because of the introduction of pinicular smears, pap smears, which do the screening for cervical carcinoma. Because the screening of cervical carcinoma, it has become less common as compared to endometrial carcinoma. Okay, it is the most invasive carcinoma. Endometrial carcinoma is the most invasive carcinoma of the female genital tract and 7% of all invasive cancers. According to the pathogenesis, endometrial carcinoma is divided into two types, type 1 and type 2. Type 1 endometrial carcinoma is seen in the age group which is between 55 to 65 years of age, and it is also known as endometrioid carcinoma. Type 2 carcinoma is also known as serous carcinoma. It is seen in a 10 years older age group as compared to type 1, and mostly seen in the age group between 65 to 75 years female, which are postmenopausal, and the uterus has become atrophic. So we have two types of endometrial carcinoma, type 1, which is known as endometrioid carcinoma, and type 2, which is known as serous carcinoma. Endometrioid carcinoma is seen in the age group between 55 to 65, and type 2 serous carcinoma is seen in 65 to 75 years old females, especially in the atrophic uterus. This is the comparison of the chart between type 2 tumors. This is also given in your Robbins. So age limit in type 1 is 55 to 65, and type 2 is 65 to 75. Clinical setting is in the type 1 carcinoma, mostly because of unopposed estrogen stimulation, obesity, hypertension, diabetes, mellitus. Type 2 is because of atrophy of the uterus and thin physique. Morphologically, type 1 carcinoma is known as endometrioid carcinoma, and type 2 is known as serous carcinoma mostly, but it can also be clear cell carcinoma and mixed Mullerian tumor, MMT. Precursor lesion in type 1 is hyperplasia, in type 2 is serous endometrial intraepithelial carcinoma. Mutated genes in the type 1 are PTEN, which is phosphate tenzin homolog, ARIDA, 1A, PI3K, FGF, TP53. They are involved in type 1. In type 2, this is again TP53, PI3K, CHD4, and PP2R are 1A. These are effective genes in cases of type 1 and 2, type 2 carcinoma. Behavior is indolent spread via lymphatic because type 1 carcinoma is again graded into type 1, type 2, type 3. This is well differentiated moderately and poorly, so the behavior is not that aggressive as compared to type 2. I'm going to explain the three types again when I'm doing the morphology. So type 2 tumors are more aggressive, intraperitoneal and lymphatic spreads are more common. So when we first we'll do the type 1 endometrial carcinoma, which is also known as endometrioid adenocarcinoma of the endometrium. Type 1 endometrial carcinoma is more common and is seen in 80% of cases. Most of these tumors are well differentiated. And these tumors arise from the endometrial hyperplasia. Like endometrial hyperplasia, these are also associated with conditions like obesity, diabetes mellitus, hypertension, infertility, and unopposed estrogen stimulation. Stepwise genetic alterations are seen in PTEN gene, which is phosphate tensine homolog gene. Stepwise mutations are seen, as I've already explained to you, in the endometrial hyperplasia. These changes are also seen in endometrial carcinoma. So type 1 endometrial carcinoma is more common. It is seen in more than 80% of cases, and it is also associated with obesity, diabetes mellitus, hypertension, infertility, unopposed estrogen stimulation. Stepwise genetic alterations can be seen in PTEN gene in this tumor. So mutations are seen in many genes. First is the mutation is PTEN tumor suppressor gene, which is phosphate tensine homolog. It is seen in 30 to 80% of endometrial carcinoma. The other mutation genes are seen in activated KRAS gene in 25% of endometrial carcinoma. KRAS gene mutations can be seen, and there is loss of function of mutation in ARID1A gene as well. This gene is a regulator of chromatin structures, and in 1/3 of the endometrial carcinoma, mutation in ARID1A gene is seen. Then there can be defects involving the DNA mismatch repair genes, which are seen in 20% of sporadic tumors, and they are prevalent in endometrial carcinoma. They are prevalent in endometrial carcinoma, arising in women from families with hereditary non-polyposis colorectal carcinoma. I've already explained to you what is hereditary non-polyposis colorectal carcinoma. And then there can be loss of function mutations in TP53 gene as well, which is present in 50% of cases. So there are many mutations which can be seen in PTEN gene, activated KRAS gene, mutation in ARID1A gene, defects involving DNA mismatch repair gene, and loss of function of TP53 gene, which is also a regulator of genome. So the changes which are seen in type 1 endometrial carcinoma, the proliferative endometrium undergoes simple hyperplasia in the endometrium because of loss of PTEN gene. Then there is loss of MLH1 gene, which can lead to complex hyperplasia which becomes atypical hyperplasia because of mutation of KRAS gene, and beta-catenin pathway, if it is defective, it can lead to grade 1 endometrioid adenocarcinoma of the endometrium. So this is the pathogenesis line underlying the type 1 endometrial adenocarcinoma, which is also known as endometrioid carcinoma of the endometrium. Morphology. Morphology, all of you know, means gross and microscopic appearance. I'm going to show you the slides after the morphology. So morphologically, endometrial carcinoma or endometrioid carcinoma can be, on the gross appearance, can be polypoidal. Polypoidal means they project like a cauliflower mass within the endometrial cavity. Or sometimes these tumors can diffusely infiltrate the endometrial lining epithelium and underlying myometrium as well. Microscopically, endometrioid adenocarcinoma show glandular formation which resemble normal endometrium. There are 3 histological grades, as I've already told you: well differentiated grade 1, moderately differentiated grade 2, and poorly differentiated is grade 3. Well differentiated grade 1 tumors are composed of well-formed glands which are differentiated by endometrial hyperplasia by the lack of stroma. So back-to-back arrangement of glands with little intervening stroma and nuclear morphology is also altered. So microscopically moderately differentiated tumors are grade 2 tumors. They are also have well-formed glands, and 50% of the tumor is composed of glands, while 50% of the tumor will be composed of solid sheets of cells, which are neoplastic cells. Then grade 3 is poorly differentiated. In poorly differentiated tumors, greater than 50% are solid areas, means that more than 50% of the tumor is composed of sheets of malignant cells and very few gland formation can be seen. Okay, so there are three grades: well differentiated, which is mostly composed of glands with back-to-back arrangement, little intervening stroma. Grade 2 or moderately differentiated, 50% of these will be in the form of sheets of malignant cells, but 50% of the tumor cells will be forming glands. In purely differentiated grade 3 tumor, it is characterized by the solid growth, mostly more than 50%, and very few gland formation as seen. 20% of endometrial carcinoma contain foci of squamous differentiation. So squamous differentiation is also present within them. And these are benign looking in well differentiated tumors, and in poorly differentiated tumors, these squamous areas also show malignant features. Okay. So I hope the morphology is clear. Grossly, they are polypoidal, or they can infiltrate into the endometrial lining epithelium and wall of uterus, and microscopically well differentiated grade 1, moderately differentiated grade 2, and poorly differentiated grade 3, as I've already explained to you. Spread of the grade 1 endometrial carcinoma occurs through myometrial invasion, followed by direct extension to the adjacent structures. Invasion of the broad ligament can be seen as a palpable mass, and lymph node metastasis is also present in the late stages. These tumors can metastasize to the liver, lungs, bone, and other organs as well. Okay, so this is the spread of the tumor. If you see, this is the gross appearance of the endometrioid adenocarcinoma. You can see these polypoidal masses hanging within the uterine cavity. Cavity is also dilated. This is the cut section of the uterus. If the examiner will ask you, this can be your OSPE question. So examiner can ask you, what do you see in this gross appearance? You are going to write, this is the cut section of the uterus showing polypoidal masses. These are polypoidal masses. They are projected into the endometrial cavity. Cavity is also irregular. And number 2, you can see also the hemorrhagic areas are present. Most probably you can see this can be a malignant tumor. You cannot see endometrioid adenocarcinoma on the gross appearance. But if you are given this photomicrograph, you are going to see crowding of glandular structures having back-to-back arrangement with little or no intervening stroma, and they are present within the myometrium. This is number 1, you are going to see crowding of glands. Number 2, you are going to say that their nuclear morphology is variable in size and shape. Nuclei are pleomorphic, and you can say there can be invasion in the myometrium is seen in the surrounding area. So this can be endometrioid adenocarcinoma. This is also the same picture, endometrioid adenocarcinoma, and this is also the poorly differentiated. You can see sheets of malignant cells and very few gland formation. Okay, so type 1 endometrioid adenocarcinoma, these two, and this is a grade 3 endometrioid adenocarcinoma type 1 though. Okay, I hope this is clear. This is a better picture of type 1 endometrioid adenocarcinoma. You can see the glands. These are all glands, small cribriform pattern, forming back-to-back arrangement, invading the underlying myometrium. So this is also moderately differentiated endometrioid adenocarcinoma of the endometrium. Next is type 2 endometrioid adenocarcinoma. Type 2 carcinoma is known as serous carcinoma as well. Type 2 endometrial adenocarcinoma is known as serous carcinoma because most of the morphology is either serous, or it is a clear cell type, or it can be a malignant mixed Mullerian type, MMT type of tumor as well. Type 2 carcinoma is known as serous carcinoma. This occurs in our age group, which is between 65 to 75 years old. Especially it arises in the endometrial atrophy, when the endometrium becomes atrophic. Type 2 tumors are poorly differentiated grade 2-3 tumors, and they can be seen in 15% of cases. And when we are giving a diagnosis of type 2 carcinoma of the endometrium or serous carcinoma, the pathologist has to write that it is a poorly differentiated grade 3 tumor, no matter what it looks like, whether it is serous, whether it is clear cell, or whether it likes malignant mixed Mullerian tumor. Okay. Type 2 tumors are poorly differentiated, grade 3 tumors, and seen in 15% of cases. Serous carcinoma is the most common subtype. Others are clear cell carcinoma and malignant mixed Mullerian tumor, MMT tumors. Okay. Pathogenesis. Mutations in TP53 genes are present in 90% of cases of endometrial cancers which are of type 2. These are missense mutations that result in accumulation of altered proteins. The precursor lesion is serous endometrial intraepithelial carcinoma. The cell's morphology in intraepithelial carcinoma is same as of invasive carcinoma, but in invasive carcinoma you can see stromal invasion, while in intraepithelial lesions you do not see any stromal invasion. All of you know as what is intraepithelial or in situ carcinoma. Intraepithelial or in situ carcinoma is the same when there is no breach in the basement membrane and there is no invasion of the stroma. Okay, so mutation in TP53 genes are seen in the pathogenesis of endometrial carcinoma type 2. Here you can see myometrium and atrophic endometrium. Atrophic endometrium changes into endometrial intraepithelial carcinoma. You can see these nuclei become big. There is crowding of epithelium and crowding of nuclei as well because of changes in P53 gene. And these changes can give rise to serous carcinoma of the endometrium. You can see myometrial invasion and serous type of glands formation because of the tumor cells. Pathogenesis we are doing is because of mutation of TP53 gene. They are found in intraepithelial carcinoma, suggesting mutation of TP53 is an early event in serous carcinoma. These tumors, they spread through the fallopian tube into the peritoneal cavity. Often at the time of diagnosis, these tumors have already metastasized to the peritoneum. Mutations in other genes can be seen as mutations can be seen in PI3K gene, PP2A gene. These are both are tumor suppressor phosphatases, and that is the target for certain viral oncoprotein as well. So there might be some viral etiology, but we are not sure about that. Okay, so mostly the pathogenesis involved changes in TP53 gene. Okay, morphologically on the gross appearance, serous carcinoma which arise in the small atrophic uterus they are often large, they are bulky masses, they can be protrude within the endometrial cavity or they can be deeply invasive into the myometrium. Microscopically, the invasive carcinoma may have papillary growth pattern, which is composed of cells with marked cytological atypia, high NC ratio, atypical mitotic figures, hyperchromasia, and prominent nuclei. So this means that when you do the microscopic examination, you can see the gland with papillary growth formation. Papillae, you all know, is projection of papillary structures within the lumen, and these papillary structures are lined by atypical epithelial cells. These atypical epithelial cells, they have high NC ratio. Cytoplasmic NC ratio has become 1:1, while normal is 1:4. Atypical mitotic figures are seen because it is a rapidly dividing tumor, and hyperchromasia means that there is increased staining of hematoxylin present within the nuclei, and nucleoli are also prominent. Type 2 endometrioid carcinoma, they are also can form marked glandular pattern as well. These tumors are high-grade tumor. They are known as grade 3 tumors, regardless of the histological pattern, means whether they are forming papillary structures, whether they are forming glandular structures, but they are always regarded as high-grade grade 3 tumors. Serous carcinomas are associated with advanced metastasis into the peritoneum. So this is the type 2 endometrioid carcinoma. You can see cyst formation and you can see these malignant cells. Here you can see they are forming small papillary structures within the cystic lumen. This is a better morphology. You can see lining epithelial cells which all show variation in nuclear size and shape, and this is stained by immunohistochemical stain. This is a better picture. You can see the cystic cavity lined by this papillary structures, and these nuclei, you can see they are prominent nuclei and they are very large, and some lymphocytic infiltrate is also present, which is because of tumor immunity. This is endometrial serous carcinoma of the endometrium. As I've told you, This picture, which I showed you earlier, can be your OSPE. This picture can be your OSPE. This picture can be your OSPE site as well. I'm going to take one section together for all OSPE slides, which we are going to cover in the histopathology. Okay, so don't worry about that. Clinical features of endometrial carcinoma. Carcinoma of the endometrium is uncommon in women younger than 40 years of age. As I've already told you, the peak incidence is between 50 to 65 years of age in postmenopausal women and 65 to 75 years of age in the cases of endometrial carcinoma type 2. Carcinoma produces irregular postmenopausal bleeding, which leads to early detection, and cures are possible in many patients. Diagnosis is established by doing an endometrial biopsy. So when a person in postmenopausal age complains of irregular bleeding, the person, when consults the gynecologist is going to do a diagnostic DNC with endometrial biopsy. This endometrial biopsy on histopathological examination will show you whether it is because of the tumor or because of hyperplasia or because of any other lesion. Okay. So histopathology is the gold standard for diagnosing endometrial carcinoma. Prognosis of clinical features, that is prognosis of the endometrial carcinoma. Prognosis depends upon the clinical stage at the time of diagnosis, histological grade and subtypes. Okay. In stage 1 tumor, which is grade 1, type 1 tumor, which is grade 1 and grade 2 tumor, surgery alone or in combination with radiation therapy gives a very good prognosis. 90% of these patients survive for 5 years. This rate drops to 75% for grade 3 tumors, stage 1 tumors, and 50% or less for stage 2 and 3 endometrioid adenocarcinoma. So it means as the grade of the tumor increases, the stage also increases, and the chances of 5-year survival rate drops. So they are excellent for grade 1 tumor, 90%, for grade 2 to 3 tumors, they can be 75%, and for grade 3 tumors, they are less than 50%. In the serous carcinoma, 5-year survival rate is far less. It is 18 to 27%, even when it is confined within the body of the uterus. Okay, because this has a high recurrence rate of 80%. Prognosis is better in case of type 1 endometrioid adenocarcinoma, and it is poor in the serous carcinoma of the endometrium. Next is the mixed Mullerian tumor, which is known as malignant mixed Mullerian tumor, MMMT. It is also referred to as carcinosarcoma. They are endometrial adenocarcinoma with a malignant mesenchymal component. The mesenchymal component can take the form of stromal sarcoma, leiomyosarcoma, or have elements like rhabdomyosarcoma and chondrosarcoma. So in malignant mixed Mullerian tumor, we have two components. One is the adenocarcinoma component, in which you can see gland formation. Other is the mesenchymal component, but both are malignant. The malignant component can present as a sarcoma, stromal type, leiomyosarcoma, or a sarcoma which can be rhabdomyosarcoma or chondrosarcoma. Clinicopathological and molecular studies have shown that these tumors are carcinomas with sarcomatous differentiation. Again, the tumor suppressor genes which are involved in malignant mixed Mullerian tumor are, there is a PTN alteration, TP53 alteration, or PIK3CA alterations. Genes can be seen in all these genes in the malignant mixed Mullerian tumor. Morphologically, malignant mixed Mullerian tumor also form bulky masses which can protrude into the cervix, outside the cervix as well, because they are very large masses. And microscopically, the tumor consists of adenocarcinoma, which is endometrioid type, serous type, or clear type, mixed with malignant mesenchymal sarcomatous element. I've already said that malignant mixed sarcomatous elements can appear as a mesenchymal component, which can be sarcoma itself, or can mimic as an extrauterine tissue like striated muscles, cartilage, bone, or adipose tissue. Okay. So this is malignant mixed Mullerian tumor, in which you both see carcinoma elements and sarcoma elements. MMTs occur in postmenopausal women mostly. They present with bleeding. Outcome is determined by the depth of the invasion of the stage. Differentiation of mesenchymal component is the other prognostic factor, and patients with mesenchymal component with heterologous components do worse than those with tumors which do not have these components. So if you only see the mesenchymal component which is of stromal type, prognosis is better. But if you see the heterologous component like bone tissue, cartilage tissue, or adipose tissue, then 5-year survival rate is far less. It is only 25 to 30%. This is malignant mixed Mullerian tumor. You can see these gland-like structures. They are of adenocarcinoma type. You can see lining epithelium is very malignant. And this is the stromal component, which is also malignant. You can see so much pleomorphism, nuclear variation in size and shape. And also you can see prominent nucleoli. So this is MMT or mixed Mullerian tumor. We have staged the endometrial carcinoma into 4 stages: stage 1, 2, 3, 4. Stage 1 tumors are confined to the corpus luteus itself. Stage 2 tumors are confined to the corpus involving the cervix. Stage 3 are involving the cervix, uterus, and outside, but present within the pelvic area, not outside the pelvis. But in stage 4 tumors, the tumor has invaded the bladder mucosa or the rectal mucosa as well. So prognosis changes from stage 1 to stage 2, 3, and 4. Worst prognosis is seen in stage 4 and best prognosis is seen in stage 1. Stromal tumor, adenosarcoma, you can read it on your own. And these are benign stromal tumors. You can give a reading. Now we are going to do the tumors of the myometrium, leiomyomas. Leiomyomas are very important from your examination point of view because we are always asking viva questions about leiomyomas. We are always giving you a photomicrograph of leiomyoma with this is gross and microscopy. So uterine leiomyomas are most common tumors in the women and they arise from the myometrium. Leiomyomas of the uterus are smooth muscle tumors which are arising from the myometrium of the uterus. Okay, remember that because I am emphasizing they are very important tumor from your viva examination point of view, from your MCQs and SCQs as well. Leiomyomas arise from the myometrium of the uterus. Leiomyomas can arise anywhere wherever the smooth muscles are present, but the most common site is uterus, which is the body of the uterus, which is composed of myometrium. Leiomyomas are benign smooth muscle tumors that occur singly or multiple. In 40% of leiomyomas, chromosomal rearrangements have been seen. Mutation of MED12 genes has been present in 70% of leiomyomas. Leiomyomas are circumscribed, discrete, round, firm masses, which can vary in size from small, for 1 centimeter, to large, huge masses, which can vary up to 20 centimeter or more, and they can fill the entire pelvis. Leiomyomas located within the myometrium, they can be located in 3 locations: submucosal, intramural, or subserosal. Submucosal means when they are present under the endometrium. Intramural means when they are present within the myometrium. And subserosal means when they are present beneath the serosal lining of the uterus. Infrequently, leiomyomas can be seen in the broad ligament in the cervix as well. And the cut section, morphologically cut section of the leiomyomas, they have characteristic walled pattern of smooth muscle bundles. Large tumors have soft areas of yellow, brown to red in color. Microscopically, leiomyomas has a very specific pattern. They are composed of bundles of interlacing smooth muscle fibers that resemble the normal myometrium going into the different directions. Muscle cells are uniform in size and shape and they have oval nuclei. Then we have some variations in these benign leiomyomas, which are atypical or bizarre leiomyomas, which are also known as symplastic tumors with nuclear atypia and giant cells, and cellular leiomyomas, but they are not malignant. They are only called benign variants of leiomyomas. Then there can be benign metastasizing leiomyomas, which can extend into the blood vessel and spread to the lungs, but they are still benign. Disseminated peritoneal leiomyomatosis is seen when small multiple leiomyomas can be seen studding the peritoneal cavity, but they're again benign. Signs and symptoms which these leiomyomas can be given are abnormal bleeding to the females, urinary frequency because they can compress the bladder, pain because of infarction of the large leiomyomas, and infertility can be seen as well. This is a photomicrograph. You can see cut section of the uterus. This is one side of the uterus, this is other. You can see a huge leiomyoma covering all of the cavity of the uterus. This is submucosal. This is intramural. This is subserosal leiomyoma under the serosal lining. Here, these 3 leiomyomas can be seen again. Microscopically, you can see these are all interlacing smooth muscle bundles with regular nuclei. And this is hyalinization within the leiomyoma. So both these slides are your auspice slides, okay? Leiomyoma, gross appearance, microscopic appearance are both your auspice slides. Then we have leiomyosarcomas, which are malignant counterpart of leiomyoma. These leiomyomas, I tell you, they hardly become malignant. So leiomyosarcoma arise not from the leiomyomas, they arise from the myometrium endosome or from endometrial stromal precursor cells rather than from leiomyomas. Leiomyosarcomas have complex, highly variable karyotype. Mostly deletions can be seen and a subset contains MED12 mutations. Morphologically, leiomyosarcoma grow within the uterus in two patterns. They form bulky fleshy masses which invade the uterine wall, or they can form polypoidal masses which can project into the uterine lumen. Morphologically, leiomyosarcomas exhibit a lot of cytological atypia from well-differentiated to anaplastic lesions. The distinction from leiomyoma is based on the cytological atypia, mitotic index, and zonal necrosis. So if we see 10 mitosis per 10 High-Park field, this is a leiomyosarcoma and it indicates a malignancy. Rare exceptions are mitotically active leiomyomas seen in young and pregnant women, which I've already told you, which are variation in benign leiomyomas. A proportion of smooth muscle neoplasms are impossible to classify, and we call them smooth muscle tumors of uncertain malignant potential. Means we do not know whether they are benign or malignant. So in the smooth muscle tumors, I have told you there is leiomyoma, which is very important from the examination point of view. Both gross and microscopic pictures are given in your OSPE slide. And leiomyosarcoma, which the leiomyomas rarely become malignant. Leiomyosarcoma arise on its own either from the myometrium or from the stromal cells, and they de-differentiate into anaplastic lesion. And to label them as leiomyosarcoma, you have to see nuclear atypia, mitotic index, and more than 10 mitosis per 10 High-Park field. You can see this picture when you can see this is irregular mitosis and nuclear pleomorphism is so much present, and this is a malignant leiomyosarcoma showing necrosis. Okay, this is the end of the lecture, so I am going to see you next week. इतनी तुमने मुझे ट्रेन चलवाई